This will be conducted by our beloved Ustad Azlan Shah. So if you follow his series, right? So we started with the Surah Al-Kahf, and earlier last night we are following the journey of Musa and Khidr and the lesson learned from there. But now the title is Resetting the Heart. Normally when you reset things, just imagine our internet got clogging, and then what we do, we just reset the router, and then we got a new a good line, right? A good internet line. So what's the problem here? It is the spiritual renewal in season of withdrawals. So this is part of our faith. When is the time that we withdraw? We have that sense of withdrawal. It seems that the titles refer to when we are down, when facing trials in life, and maybe we feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abandoned us. Maybe we feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do not accept our prayers, right? And then we face such difficulties, and then we don't have hopes. But without being aware, suddenly in the future we discover truth, and then we have faith, and then we have high hope. And then we need to such a renewal of our faith, resetting our faith, and then become more dynamic. And then we follow the series before us. Until now, we can see from the title, the theme of these conventions is about sabr and tawakkul. And then we have the life examples, role models that happening in front of us, where in Gaza, for example, that they've been quote unquote, right, being abandoned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they've been bombed every day. That is the views of a lot of people, right? They've been tortured, they've been the bodies flew over, being bombed, right? And then their houses gone, their family members gone. But yet, when the peace is activating right now, what they did, and we can see they are not only that began a new life, but with rigor, right? We can see in our media feed is that, and then they have, for example, like a lot of students go back to schools. Even though the universities that they have is destroyed, but they still go to school through online, through building that half destroyed. And then we can see how they are rigorous. We can relate to these titles, and inshallah we can see. And then a lot of there is a Jama'ah wedding, right, in Gaza. So this is a life model. So if anything that we face in life, difficulties in this side of world, compared to what happened in Gaza, it's just there is no comparison. So that's what we can emulate their rigors, their lives, their iman, their faith towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with that, I pass to our Sheikh Ustad Azlan Shah, resetting the heart, spiritual renewal in season of withdrawal. Go ahead, Ustad.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, all praise and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will be able to gather this morning again and continue another stories from Surah Al-Kahf. And I would like to just add on or continue a little bit from last night's session when we ended about 10 p.m. yesterday. I had few interaction after the session which add on to so many depth to the story. There was a mom came in, she did not lose her child in terms of death, but she experienced the child going astray, for example, going through a lot of challenges that far from her expectation. So that's also something that challenges the faith, the understanding, the wisdom behind why someone has invested so much in the upbringing and whatnot. And also, after that we had a conversation, someone mentioned about Steve Jobs. So you know that famous speech of that Steve Jobs gave during that graduation speech. He said that you only can connect the dot backwards, not moving forward. When you move forward, you cannot see what's coming and you don't understand the movement of the dots. You can only connect them backwards. So the story yesterday was somewhat captured that between Musa and Khidr, you only can see the wisdom and the insights going backward. So today we're going to spend some time exploring the first story in Surah Al-Kahf. This surah actually, there is a historical context to it. This surah came down to Prophet ﷺ and he said, this is one of my oldest property. Meaning he treasured this surah so much because this surah was revealed when Prophet ﷺ and Sahaba were going through some of the toughest time in their life. After 3 years of private da'wah, Prophet started to call publicly and they get tortured. So people like Bilal, people like Khabbab, people like so many Sahaba, the family of Ammar, Yasir, Sumayya, they were tortured. So during this phase, the faith was challenged. Even Khabbab ibn Arad came to Prophet ﷺ in an authentic hadith. He said that, why don't you make dua so that our suffering ends? This is too much already. And Prophet said that you are hasty. People before us were tested even more severe than this. You know what Khabbab went through? Khabbab went through burning with metals and coals behind his back. To the extent when years after this incident, when Umar al-Khattab asked Khabbab, can I see your back? How it looks like? And Khabbab, when he lifts his back, Umar just cried, looking at the holes and the burning that he suffered. So that was a very difficult time, and then this surah came down. But that's not the only historical context. Quraysh as well was engaging. They were trying all effort to lock or to block the message of the da'wah, and they came to an idea that let's refer to some intellectual elites that can help us destroy this message. So they don't have much of knowledge of previous books, so they sent their emissaries or their representative to Medina, Yathrib, to refer from the Jews if they can give some questions so that they can test Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and prove him wrong. So they give him 3 questions. And one of the questions was regarding Ashabul Kahf. Another one is Dhul Qarnayn, is the last story in this surah. And in between there was a trick questions about Ruh. So if Prophet answered the question about Ruh, it means that he has no idea about the prophecy because he already fall into the trap. But Prophet did not answer the question. Even when all these 3 questions came to him, he confidently said that, come tomorrow, I will do a press conference and answer your question. And everybody gathered, media was there and whatnot, they were waiting for the answer, but the revelation did not come. And then Prophet said, come tomorrow. The meeting was urgent. And then he waited until 15 days, according to Ibn Kathir, and those 15 days was also so intense. And not only Prophet ﷺ was suffering the effect and the torture of the propaganda, the campaign, even the Sahaba was going through a situation which I would loosely say that quite similar to a situation we might face right now. Questions that are very difficult to answer. People are asking why you are wearing like this, why you must adhere to this kind of diet, why there are certain kind of verses in Quran that is so harsh, asking you to to kill certain people. So that kind of question, when it's being bombarded, it can be very overwhelming, and that also can make us withdraw, spiritually withdraw, because we cannot handle the pressure. So why this story matters right now? Because often we are thought about this story as a miracle, that someone slept for over 300 years, it's about sleep, while we love sleeping, but this story does not really about the sleep. And also, sometimes it's just a story for children. You guys go to the cave, you have your puppy, your dog, and life is good, that kind of. But Allah introduced this surah with a strong statement and a challenge, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Am hasibta anna ashab al-kahfi wal-raqimi kanu min ayatina ajaba. What is the context to this statement? Quraysh came from Yathrib with the question. They were so excited. Even the Jews who gave the question was so excited about the story because it has these kind of miracles. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is not the biggest miracle that you should be like overexcited about. It's not that difficult for me to do such a thing. He can make people sleep, this and that. What's amazing is not the sleep. What's amazing is how faith survives under pressure. This was the whole message of that surah. Even to the Prophet and Sahaba, one of the action taken after the surah was revealed was sending Sahaba to a Christian land, to Abyssinia. This is a story from a Christian tradition. Many scholars suggest that this happened during a time when the Muslims of that time was the Christians. We call them Christians, but they were Muslims. And this story led to the migration, the first migration to Ethiopia or Abyssinia or Habasha, where Prophet said there is a king, and he is a Christian king, but he is just. And later the king also will embrace Islam, and he is the only person that Prophet prayed upon his janazah in absence. Even Prophet made an announcement in Medina because Jibril came and sent the message saying, your brother, your righteous brother, Ashama, has passed away. So this is also some historical context behind the story. So these are some common challenges Muslims are facing, not only in the US or in the Western world. Also, when I experience dealing with new Muslims in Muslim majority countries, where they have different dynamics in their families, in their working place, their old friends, their old circles, they do feel like they are torn between trying to show their Muslim identity and also trying to be accepted, because they're kind of in between, not there, not here. So am I too Muslim at work? When you turn down some invitation to go for like a light drink, or you have some celebration, Halloween or whatever that people regard as something fun, something just a social interaction stuff. Why are so serious? Even there was a Korean brother told me that his boss was so angry. Why you need to pray in the working hours? Just pray after working hours. Why you need to take a break? So that also makes him so overwhelmed and struggle. Am I Muslim enough at home? Sometimes we have two faces, right? Sometimes kids experience this. I do experience it as well. So at home we have a different personality. At school we have a different personality. We are struggling. This is all under the identity fatigue. And also moral pressure without persecution, because persecution is something else. Just now, Brother Zabidi mentioned about the genocide, the torture, the imprisonment, and all of that. But sometimes we are not being jailed or being kept in a detention, but we are under a lot of pressure, which makes sometimes even people change their name. This is just a common thing happened when 9/11 happened, and people have anxiety to introduce themselves if people might discover that they are Muslim. It's much easier for men, because if they are Muslim or non-Muslim, people hardly can tell. But from sisters, it's more difficult, right? You have the appearance, you need to wear certain kind of cloth, certain kind of conduct in certain places, so the pressure is intense. And in an environment where haram is a normal thing, something being accepted as a culture, whether it's drinking alcohol or halal is seen as religion. So this is also another internal struggle that we might go through, and we have spiritual withdrawal. For example, people might see us publicly that we are very Islamic plus pro. Like everything about us is the words, the dressing, the social media postings, everything. But we struggle internally. We know we could not wake up for Fajr. We know when we pray, suddenly we realize that it's ended. What did I recite? Everybody laugh means that we are going through the same experience. And sometimes activism without anchoring, just to be seen, just to be making noise and whatnot, going for certain kind of event. Sometimes we lose from within the spirituality. Hence, I remember just now when I listened to Dr. Rauda's presentation about the care for the elderly, I was reminded about the story of Prophet Ayub alayhi salam. Prophet Ayub alayhi salam suffered several years of illness where he was bedridden, and he made a dua that sounds like Rabbi anni massani ad-dur wa anta arhamur rahimin. Oh my Lord, I have been touched by a little bit of harm. You are the most merciful. Normally we recite this surah when we look into our physical illness, but there is also a spiritual illness which requires this dua. Sometimes we are being touched by this illness of all this, the noise that we have right now. So there are also many of us. I had conversation over the years, me also having the same fear, having kids. Whenever they grow up, they get to the teenage years, they change and become a different creature. So it makes us fearful, fear for children's iman. And this is not something that we go through. Even Ibrahim alayhi salam, the one who built the Kaaba, had so much fear about his project. Will they be Muslim? Will they pray and whatnot? So that's also something very challenging, and it can make us sometimes go through a phase of withdrawal. We just don't want to think about it, just let it go. Whatever going to happen, happens. Fear of being misunderstood, always explaining ourselves, always answering or defending ourselves rather than being in the forefront of telling what is Islam is. We are busy telling people what Islam is not. And that's very tiring. Anything happens, oh, this is not Islam. Oh, no, this is not Islam. So there is another dimension to that as well. And finally, also fear of speaking or fear of silence. It's a very difficult situation. Basically, in the current climate that we are in, we are very careful about what we must say, not say, and whatnot. Ashabul Kahf were not tortured; they were slowly suffocated. They were few young men. Many indication in Quran suggest that there were 7 of them, though Allah again and again said that don't focus too much on the number, because it doesn't matter. You can be 2 and you are still Ashabul Kahf when you are in the cave. I can imagine that we have this cave right now, so dark. Hopefully you guys can see me. That's another problem. They were slowly suffocated. So they were among elite families, and there was a king that claimed that he is the God. And he pressured and he put on the paper all the policies. He banned, he used every propaganda in the media to suffocate those who believe, to the extent they felt like we rather go somewhere and retreat. So this story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasized. He can tell this story without emphasizing they were youth. But this story emphasized that they were youth. Innahum fityatun amanu bi rabbihim wa zidnahum huda. Because this is the most critical period when you form your identity. We all went through. It's the period where either you make it or you break it kind of phase. So youth, they are in the phase of identity formation. This is the period where peer pressure is the biggest concern. What friends does, what friends do, what they read, what they watch, what they listen to. We have this fear of missing out. We don't know, we'll be different. So many parents who tries to mold their children, follow a certain way of life. Even recently I read a book. The book title was Girls on the Edge. Girls on the Edge, written by Leonard Sachs. He is a psychiatrist and also a medical doctor, counselor from Canada. He's not a Muslim, but he is a pious Christian who wants to protect morality and righteousness. I mean, like good moral conduct. And he says that how difficult it is. Just 50 years ago, it is strange for girls come to school wearing certain kind of outfit for sports, and he also says that if you go to the stores to buy dress for children nowadays, they are being designed to be more exposing since very early. So we can be in an environment where our daughters or our son will ask, everybody else does it, so why we are weird? Why we have to adhere to certain kind of standard? And when they go to school following what we say, sometimes they also develop resentment because and Professor Dr. Leonard Sachs suggests that certain words that these children use to label their parents to justify their coolness among their friends. So that's also a struggle that these young people go through. But they are also highly curious and risk-taking. So in this time, Muslim youth navigate so many different challenges. We can see that there is a gender crisis, gender identity crisis. This is not only a problem in a country like the United States or the European countries. This is also happening in pretty much everywhere, because it's being normalized again and again through films, through movies, through songs and everything. So when you speak out about it, you are the weird one. You are the close-minded one, and so forth. Sexual normalization, faith, relativism. This is even, if you look into the trends on the social media, postings and whatnot, you rather say like all religions are similar. Religions are just ways to get to God, and then people try to tone it down. So there is many kind of pressure that puts someone in a position where they can withdraw from holding on to their faith, and Islam reduced to culture. Coming from a Muslim majority country, I can tell, while many Muslims here, being the smallest minority, fear for their children's iman, for their children's livelihood and the environment, many parents in Muslim majority country also fear that they brought up their children in an Islamic environment, but they grew up without the essence of that Islam. It's just become a culture. It's a ceremonial thing. You make dua in these certain places, and then it becomes empty. That's also another challenge. So Ashabul Kahf faced a society where this belief was not debated. It was normal. It was default. It was something accepted by Noah, and they did not negotiate. This is a very fundamental part of the story, where they said, Rabbuna Rabbus Samawati wal Ard. They were young people. They had some level of fluidity that they can manage. They can see the dynamics, how to blend in the society and whatnot. But there are red lines that they did not cross. in which they say Rabbuna Rabbus Samawati wal Ard. Not every space is neutral. This is something very difficult to explain to our young ones who sees everything is neutral, while some spaces actually reshape you slowly. It desensitizes you slowly. So that happens even if I give a simple analogy or example. When we watch movies, we tend to justify that, you know, every movie has certain scenes, you know, it's just normal, relax, live a little bit, like. So we try to tone it down to some extent. Later we will feel like it has reshaped us entirely and we has lost the sensitivity. So this story suggests even Prophet ﷺ sent some of his Sahaba, not some, big majority of his Sahaba to Ethiopia, to Abyssinia, in which the amount of Muslims, the number of Muslims left in Makkah was smaller than those who were in Ethiopia. Sometimes retreat or stepping back or bringing them into a safe zone, safe environment, putting them in a safe space is essential, is important. Hence the ayah begins, وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ, when they withdrew from their society. But there is some very important caveat. Not in any story of the prophets we learn that we must hate the society. Regardless how bad, corrupt they are, prophets always call their people, Ya Qawmi, O my beloved people. The love must be there, still there, survive. Sometimes we need to retreat, we need to step back, but it doesn't take away the concern, the love, the care for the people. So they did not hate their society, they did not curse their people. Even Prophet ﷺ taught us, Man qala halakan nas, whoever says that perish are these people, he is the most perished among them, or he is the one who will lead them to a state of dysfunction and perishment and whatnot. So they did not curse their people, and also they did not burn bridges. So this is something we need to learn as a Muslim wherever we are. We need to maintain the love, the care, the prospect, looking at the people as the future Muslims. They have chances. For example, when we read Sirah, sometimes we didn't realize people like Umar al-Khattab, Abu Sufyan, if we compare to this time and place, they were people like Netanyahu that eventually later they embraced Islam. When Khalid ibn Walid embraced Islam, he was among the final batch who embraced Islam before the Fath of Makkah. When they were in the battle of Mu'tah, all three generals that Prophet appointed martyred, they died. And everybody had something in their heart. They knew Khalid is the best general, but he just signed the new form, becoming a Muslim. And this guy has done so much damage, and many of them has lost their uncles, their siblings because of Khalid before. But they need to accept him wholeheartedly because he is now on our side. So imagine, there is so much going there in the hearts of people, accepting and looking at. That's Prophet taught us. Prophet almost died in Uhud because of Khalid. But Khalid became Muslim because his brother Walid ibn Walid sent letter to Khalid, say that Prophet asked me, how come someone is so intelligent like you still has not accepted Islam? So Khalid was touched by that gesture, and he came. He fought in that battle, and when he came back to Medina, what Prophet said to him? You are still under probation. Prophet said, you are the sword of Allah. He got that title. So it's a very deep things that we need to reflect on how Prophet ﷺ dealt with Sahaba, who, especially those were the one who caused so much harm to Prophet ﷺ. Many of them participated in the boycott, which led to the death of Khadija but later he must sit with them, eat with them, go for a journey with them. That's something very, very interesting to ponder. And then they did protect Iman. They did not hate their society, but they protected their Iman. Created sacred distance. This is very important. And choose spiritual survival. So withdrawal is not, we cannot look at it as, oh, you are being coward. No, it is strategic. Prophet ﷺ also, in many instances of Sirah, he made certain decisions that looked like it is a setback, but it was strategic. Especially sending Muslim, some of the best of the Sahaba in Ethiopia, was strategic. Who was that? Ja'far, his cousin, Ibn Abi Talib. Uthman ibn Affan and his own daughter, Ruqayya, was sent also to Abyssinia. And they stayed there even after Prophet migrated to Medina. They did not immediately return because Prophet had strategy. So for several years, 13, 15 years, these Sahaba, they were in retreat. They were put in a base as a backup plan. So Prophet was very strategic to protect Iman. Why? Because Makkah and Medina at that point still under threat, geopolitical threat. They had Persian on top, they had Romans on the side, so it was not safe. Anything can happen. If Prophet ﷺ was killed, there is a backup plan in Abyssinia. But unfortunately, we have nothing much recorded of what happened in those 13, 15 years in Abyssinia, because that is a very important blueprint of how Muslim minority lived in a Christian land, and they had a good life there. I mean, like, not good life, they enjoyed it, because they came and they said, we never enjoyed it because we want to come back home. But they did not have any issues with the people. They were protected by the king, and even the king embraced Islam. And there's so much happened there, but we don't have much accounts of what is being recorded. So, I want to cut short this session, not to go through every single verse in Quran, because it will take so much time. Even though we are in the cave, it's not going to work. We have to go through everything, but I'm going to summarize this with a bunch of posters my wife sent this morning. So thank you to my wife. She saved me a lot of work, because I planned to sit down after Fajr and do some slides, and then Pakcik Zabidi said, let's go for a walk. So we walked about 2 hours, 1.5 hours, talking about so many things. I came back and see, oh, my wife sent posters. Good, thank you so much, I love you. Let's go through. So why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seal their ears? This is very important, because Allah, whenever Allah drops certain details, that details is very, very important. Because He can be telling us so many things, what kind of clothes they wear, what kind of dog it was, Dalmatian, Bulldog, what it was, but there were no such details except this. And why did Allah seal their ears? وَضَرَبْنَا عَلَىٰ آذَانِهِمْ. He did not tell us that He closed their eyes, which sleeping normally associated with closing the eyes. If someone stares at me, but he is sleeping, but the eyes is open, I will never know that they are sleeping, right? But Allah said that He sealed the ear. The people of the cave slept for 309 years. By the way, some footnote, when this story was told, the Jews and the Christians asked, how come you say the duration was 309 years? For us, it's only 300 years. So why is this 9 years added? Anyone knows why? Why do you think Allah had another 9 years? If we count based on solar calendar, it is 300 years. But if you count with lunar calendar, it is 309 years. So Allah is even being very specific about, I know this story more than you, in depth. نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ نَبَأَهُمْ بِالْحَقِّ. You have some altered version. Let me tell you the real version and the full version. To make that possible, because they kept in the cave to sleep for 309 years, to make that possible, Allah could have stopped their hearts. Just now Dr. Rauda mentioned that there is a process that we can put you on hibernation, wait until certain technology can revive your life to a few hundred years. Allah can do that, right? But Allah did not stop their hearts. He could have stopped their hunger, but the first thing He mentioned is their ears. Why? Sleeping for hours is normal. Sleeping for 309 years is medically impossible. But there is one organ that acts as a permanent alarm system. One organ that never fully sleeps, the ear. This morning we woke up because the alarm rang, right? So whenever we go even into a deeper sleep, the ear is always activated. Allah says, فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَىٰ آذَانِهِمْ فِي الْكَهْفِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا. So we struck a seal over their ears in the cave for a number of years. Notice the precision. He did not say we put them to sleep, but he said we struck the ears. At first you will feel that what is the importance of these details? But at the end you will see it is a very deep details that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dropped. Because even in deep sleep, your ears stay alert. They scan for danger. They monitor the environment. They keep the brain in a state of low level arousal. This is why a sudden noise wakes you instantly. The ear is the guidance of the guardian of the brain. If the ears remain active for 300 years, the brain would process wind, insects, echoes. They are in the cave, right? The auditory cortex would never rest. The nervous system would stay stimulated. Deep suspended hibernation would be impossible because the input port was still open. So Allah did something precise. He didn't just make them tired, He sealed the auditory input. By blocking the sound, scientists call this sensory gating. By blocking the sound, the brain could finally enter a state of total uninterrupted preservation. Allah did not stop at the ears. He also added another detail. Because they were sleeping, when we read stories like Prophet Ayub just now, even the one who are in bedridden condition, they have this practice that they need to be tossed around so that it can protect them from bad sore. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept them sleeping in that cave, blocked from any auditory distraction, and also وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. We turn them to the right and to the left. Why? To prevent pressure ulcers, which is bad sore, to keep the blood flowing, to stop the earth from eating the flesh. This wasn't a nap, it was a divine life support. The ear sealed for mental preservation. I repeat, the ear sealed for mental preservation. The body turned for physical preservation. The Quran described the exact medical requirements for long-term survival, centuries before physiology existed. So why does this matter to us? Because the same Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knew how to silence ears for centuries, knows exactly what is overwhelming your mind today. He knows that noise is the enemy of rest. This is the age that we are living in right now. We are so overwhelmed. Many of the things that we discussed just now make us feel we want to withdraw from practicing Islam, from holding on to the spirituality and whatnot. We are tired not because we don't sleep, but because our ears are never sealed. This is a practice that we need to reflect. Constant notification about every issues that we follow, which keep induce our anxiety, fear, music addiction. We try to find peace through all these instruments, news, endless news. You guys know Trevor Noah? He's very famous here, right? In the US. He was probably the most famous The Daily Show's host. I listened to one of his podcasts. after he resigned from that post, he says he only read news once a week. While before, when he was the anchor or the host of that show, he reads probably hundreds of news portals and newspapers every day to keep on the edge of the news. He said after experiencing that, he advised just read news once a week, because whatever in between is just story in progress. But we are bombarded with news every single minute. We got this notification and whatnot, which makes us anxiety, even it induces our fear more than it should. Suddenly we read about this person is being arrested, that's happening, this happening, da da da. We are being, even Prophet ﷺ, when he was bombarded with all this news and breaking news and propaganda media ads, Prophet ﷺ was advised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wasbir ala ma yaqulun, be patient of what they are saying about you. Allah will mention about you are so concerned about them to the extent you are about to kill yourself due to the sadness. So Prophet ﷺ was taught not to absorb entirely whatever there is there. We have constant input, so we never reach deep rest. Sometimes what we need is not more energy. Sometimes we always say that, brother or sister, come, be more enthusiastic, be more courageous and whatnot. Sometimes it's not that. It's less input. Less is more. And spiritually speaking, we are being taught in many ways. If we look into the adhkar, the remembrance, which are being taught by Prophet ﷺ, we don't have anything that exceeds 100 times. While we can see many other people might suggest that recite this for 1,000 times, for 5,000 times, as if the numbers is what counts. But if you look into the prophetic adhkar, it's simple, short, minimal, just to keep the heart alive, just to make sure we don't get distracted with too much. It's less input. You need to seal the ears of your heart, disconnect the noise and block the dunya. So in our daily life, we have this mini cave. Please don't go and find any cave that you want to go and recite. Because there are certain group in our large and vast and colorful religion that resort to going into the cave. They say that even Prophet ﷺ was in the cave, but that was before revelation. Did Prophet ﷺ went back to cave after revelation? No. Yes, he did. But not for spiritual retreat. He was hiding when he was making hijrah. But other than that, he has not taught us to completely isolate and seclude ourselves in a cave. But he taught us that prayer is our mini cave. Qiyamul Layl is a compulsory routine and regimen for Prophet ﷺ and early Muslims, because that was their cave. They must disconnect. And prayer should be disconnect. Nowadays, even people praying while wearing AirPod. I don't know if they are listening or they are using noise cancellation, but we need to learn to completely disconnect. If we can't be away from our phone even for an hour without feeling anxiety, it means that we are struggling to disconnect. You silence for 5 minutes, you seal the world out, you silence the noise, you turn your heart to the right and left, away from distraction. It is how you preserve your soul and in a noisy world. And finally, the people of cave didn't survive just because they slept. They survived because Allah knew exactly what needed to be turned off. So we are living in a time where we need to learn what is actually essential and what is distraction. And we need to learn to turn off the distractions. If your soul feels heavy, stop trying to do more. Ask Him to help you hear less. So these are some of the, even one more that Prophet ﷺ taught us. During Ramadan, he has i'tikaf. I'tikaf, if we study, it was a practice that is very specific. The Prophet did not come out of the mosque for that final 10 days. Some of the time he spent 20 nights, the final 20 nights in the mosque. So we might seclude ourselves for a while in a mosque, but if we are still connected, doesn't make much difference, right? So that's something important. Ramadan is coming. We are in the month of Rajab, so we need to already start to declutter and to arrange how to have clarity in the noisy world. So 5 intentional withdrawals to consider: noise fasting, try to minimize reading news, social media, and endless commentary. We are living in a very entitled time where everybody wants to have their peace of mind about everything. Even we don't have any expertise or full information about an incident, about an issue, we want to comment. This is something that Prophet ﷺ warned, that he said, the furthest amongst you from me and the one who that I will hate them in the day of judgment is a-thartharun. A-thartharun is a person who speaks about everything. He wants to comment about everything that he has no knowledge about. And there is another 2 criteria, that he has arrogance, that he puts down everybody else's opinion is weak, is bad and whatnot. So endless commentary is something that we need to look into. So we can experience a cave-like life if we can have first noise fasting. Number 2, identity anchoring. Who am I before Allah? Sometimes when we hear people say things about us, we start to believe them. It can go both ways. When people say, hey, you are very nice, you are very pious, well, we know we are not, but enough time people tell us that, we start to believe that I'm very pious. Or the opposite, when people say you are very bad, you are antisocial, this and that, we also might get trapped and start to believe what people say about us negatively. So the very important element here is to have a clear perspective. Who are we in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And also nowadays we learn Islam to some extent, and we also, our daily emotion is decided by the algorithm. This is not a secret, everybody knows that, everybody have the algorithm, and the algorithm decide how you feel today. If they want to make you angry, they can send things that you will get angry. You want to make them feel anxious, they can send things and make you feel anxious. And have sacred routines, non-negotiable salah times, weekly Quran silence. Number 3, protected spaces. When we make this dua, Rabbana hablana min azwajina wa dhurriyyatina qurratu ayn, coolness of the eye, it suggests that we face so many challenges outside of the home. We go back, the home is where we find the coolness of the eye. But in this time and place, most of the time it's opposite. The eyes are very warm and painful inside the home, and it's very cool and pleasurable outside the home. Even sometimes it doesn't have to go outside of the home, it's on your screen, on our television and whatnot. So we need to fix this. We must anchor our home as the place that we call a safe space, and to make our family as our companions. 7 sleepers, they had brothers. Even Allah valued the dog. The dog accompanied that pious people. The dog got a mention in the Quran. So we don't want to be like a dog, of course. We want to have good friends that during difficult times we can rely on them. The story is actually even longer than this. When we see they will have a conversation and they will send one of them out to find food, right? From the conversation we can see how they are very particular with everything that relates to their faith. Their food, how they're going to appear in the public and whatnot. And finally, trusting Allah with outcomes. Do what is sincere. Don't bother too much about the first thing that we mentioned, what people see and perceive of us. Public Islam versus private Islam. Though it's important not to do things that may trigger or provoke people to think us badly. Even Prophet ﷺ one day, he was in an i'tikaf. One of his wife, Safiya radiallahu anha, her house is a bit far from the mosque. Every other Prophet's wife, their house are attached to the Prophet mosque. But Safiya is among the one that Prophet married a bit later. She had no space in that compound, so she stayed a bit further. So she came to talk to Prophet ﷺ, and Prophet entertained Safiya radiallahu anha, and then Prophet went out to send her back home, and it was dark. So two of Ansar Sahaba saw, and they felt awkward. Prophet is walking with a woman in the dark street, and they want to run away because Prophet saw them. And Prophet asked them to stop. And they said, oh my God, Prophet calling us. And then Prophet said that this is my wife, Safiya. So he wants to clarify things. Don't make things, arguably people can throw some assumption. That's also important. So what the Sahaba said, oh Messenger of Allah, do you think we're going to think bad stuff about you? Come on. And Prophet said, Shaitan moves in your veins. Shaitan can throw so many things in your mind, and you can have false assumption about something. While most of our social media feed nowadays is false assumptions about something or someone. So Shaitan flows in the reels and the feeds. So finally, this story entirely suggests that these young men, they did everything they can, and the best effort they can take at that point of time was to retreat and go into a cave. So we must do everything that we can to the best of our ability, and then rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah can make you sleep for 300 years and then revive them again. The entire society has changed. They did not do any work to change them. They were just sincere. They did everything they can to protect their faith, and Allah showed that He can protect you in whatever condition and environment. This is the final book that I want to suggest. I read this book probably twice or 3 times. Written by a computer scientist, Cal Newport. The book title is Digital Minimalism. It has a very precise protocols, how to reduce noise, choosing a focused life in a noisy world. So it has certain steps. First, it will explain to the extent we understand how we are actually drawn, and we did not realize that we are drawn with all the noise that we are bombarded with, and then he will teach us how to declutter and to disconnect so that we will be able to connect with important and relevant things in life. Thank you very much. That's all for today. We have about 3 minutes, maybe not even any time left. Maybe just give back to.
So we have 20 minutes. Jazakallah khair, Ustaz Azlan. Let's open for the question and answers. Anyone? Questions? Yes.
So I have a question. You mentioned something about, you said Netanyahu. So I wanted to ask you about like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives someone hidayah, because I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in the seerah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Khalid ibn Walid, these people were like guided to Islam because they didn't transgress like all boundaries. But like someone like Netanyahu, who's like, you know, behind the horrors that are happening right now in Palestine, like, would you say that's comparable, or like how would you? Because some people argue that, but I disagree with it. Can you clarify?
Yeah, that's a very good concern. Generally speaking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided those who were not those who did not went overboard, like Abu Jahl, Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, that was so bad. But Khalid ibn al-Walid, we can argue that he was behind a lot of pain and suffering. He was working so hard to kill the Prophet ﷺ. He caused so many shuhada. So we don't have like a clear cut, because we will not be able to say who has transgressed beyond certain limits. Only Allah knows, right? So Allah can bring anybody He wishes. But again, we are not being thought to be passive, that whenever people transgress, we just, okay, let's deal with it, maybe they can become Muslim one day. No, we have to stop whatever injustice it is. But we are not in a position to shut any doors. Even Fir'aun was given chance. He was claiming he was God, he was killing babies, he transgressed, he put Bani Israel under hundreds of years of suffering. But Prophet sent Musa alayhi salam, said to Musa, go to him, maybe he wants to change his heart. So it suggests that we cannot shut the door until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides. So yes, we can have the hatred, we can make dua against them, but we also must be prepared. Maybe if something happens of that sort, how are we going to face that? Because Prophet ﷺ had a lot of, but there is also some nuances. For example, Wahshi actually did just one thing. He killed Hamza. Radiallahu anhu. Later on, he came and embraced Islam. But there is something very specific with regard to the Prophet's relationship with Hamza. The Prophet asked him, did you kill Hamza? He said yes. And the Prophet asked him to elaborate how did he executed that killing. After he told the entire story, Prophet said, if you can, don't show your face to me, because it triggers my emotions. So he felt very bad after that, until he feel that he has redeemed that by killing the false prophet that came after that, Musaylama. So there are very nuanced aspects to that. So yeah, generally speaking, no, Allah, in the seerah we can see those who were very bad towards Prophet ﷺ, they were not, generally not guided. But there are some, even Abu Sufyan, we can argue, he was the commander-in-chief when Ahzab happened, when Uhud happened. So he's the that we can refer to today, right? So, and he embraced Islam in a very, if you read the seerah, he was a bit reluctant when he wants to embrace Islam. Until Abbas, the uncle of Prophet ﷺ, kind of like, come on man, enough is enough, that kind of situation. Then he embraced Islam, and when Prophet ﷺ entered Mecca, he declared that the house of Abu Sufyan is a safe cave. Whoever wants to protect themselves, get into the house of Abu Sufyan. But on the other side of the story, Prophet also married the daughter of Abu Sufyan, even before he embraced Islam. Habiba, Ramlah Habiba. So it's life, right? Dynamics, nuance is multi-layered. Hopefully that gives some perspective. Not that answer the question, just give some perspective. Okay, any other question?
Any more questions?
Assalamualaikum. Thank you. I just wanted to ask one. You suggested 2 books yesterday. One was Shaykh Ali Nadwi. I didn't get the title, and also another book about focus.
Yeah, stolen focus.
Yes, and another question. I'm not sure how to word it. I've heard about in the seerah about a person who was during Rasulullah's time, who was part of the either a homosexual or something like that, and that he was isolated, or Rasulullah told him to be away. Do you know about that? Is this true, or was there some kind of similar incident in the seerah? I guess you were mentioning a little bit about the LGBTQ and how our youth now face that. How do we relate to them or deal with them as Muslims, and especially if they are Muslims?
Oh, that's a very difficult question. First, in the seerah, I could not recall. I haven't read entirely. Maybe we can go and research if there is any incident. I knew that there is an incident of suicide happened among Sahaba. That kind of stories has its place, but for gender issues, I haven't came across anything yet in the Sirah as of now. But I would suggest there is some people might regard this individual controversial because they have certain opinion about him, but I think people like Dr. Yasir Qadi has a good lecture about how to deal with LGBTQ. And I think he managed to synthesize between the religious aspect of it, the political aspect of it, being here, especially in the US context, and also understanding it from the psychology angle of it. So I think the closest that I have experienced is our neighboring state, Singapore. They have legalized same-sex marriage, and the religious authority were put in a very difficult position to respond. And I read through all their articles and kind of like their conclusion about the situation. I think we can find some leeway or because they open their arms. They will not take a position that Islam allows this, but they take an approach where they can engage and help through the process of understanding, dialogue, and helping out if there is some need for them to receive help. Because when religious people shut the door altogether, they don't have enough space and place to go and find answers for some of the questions. So I would answer as brief as that. But I really recommend that you go to MUIS, Majlis Ugama Islam Singapura, and just search through in the search engine. You will find their Mufti's articles, which I think we can take it as a baby step to develop further. And when we have a story of a prophet that precisely dealt with LGBTQ kind of situation, means that Allah has provided guidance of how. But I will not shun away to say that story has the most intense punishment in the entire Quran, as if it suggests that this is not something to be taken lightly. But it's Allah's position to punish, not our position to punish. Our position is to find ways and to explore how to manage that kind of environment. May Allah help us in this kind of situation. And even I'm someone who goes to schools and colleges in Malaysia. I can tell you, this is a growing issue in Malaysia, even in Quranic schools. It has become something very alarming, very alarming. So you are not alone, and whoever that's going through this kind of challenges is not alone. We are battling this together, inshallah. Is there any other question?
Any more questions?
Please ask easier ones, so that I can fly back. I have kids.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. You talk about like how we should create our own cave with our families, but I'm wondering, like, is there like a limit to that? Like, because even in this muktamar, like we're kind of like a small portion of the Malaysian and the Indonesian community coming here, and everyone else, the maybe majority of Malaysian and Indonesian Muslims, they're like in their own caves right now, and like they're siloed out from the community. So I'm wondering whether there is a limit to how much we can take your advice and like going to our own caves, staying out of the news and that kind of thing.
I would say that the cave, very specifically, the story is told with a pinpoint focus, laser focus towards spiritual survival. So if we are in a cave that not offering spiritual survival, that's probably not a safe cave, because that is an isolation that might lead us to some very dangerous places, dark places. So the core importance, what we call the foundation of having a cave, is a cave that provides spiritual support. So that's important. So the first thing first is family, but we also know that some, for example, new Muslims, they don't have family as their cave. They need to find some other people or some other setting that can provide that kind of protection. Even the many scholars discussed if these 7 boys, if we accept that there are 7, actually knew each other, or they all met at the cave. They were searching, they were alone, they were searching for protection, so Allah gathered them in a cave. So that also can happen. While we were searching, we found our cave mates, and we stayed with them. So yeah, so the story has many layers as well to explore. So we might regard Mu'tamar as one cave. There can be some other caves as well. We can have some visits to other caves and live like our forefathers. Hopefully that answers the question. Okay. Any other questions?
Any more questions? Since Dr. Zalila mentioned about in the aging population right now, even meaning that increase the age, being some stay even 100 years, right? And then in the Quran, in the Surah Al-Kahf, we have formula right now. They have 300 years sleeping, and the key is you shut off your ear, right? Maybe we can give this tip to them, you know. So is that a good idea?